Hello, I hope this video finds you well. What we're going to do today is we are going to download the most current version of Python 3 onto our Mac, and then we're going to use IDLE, which is the Integrated Development Learning Environment that is provided with the Python 3 download, to kind of understand how to write some basic Python commands and create a Python file. What's important here is that this video is just about getting yourself set up to program on your computer. It's not about the actual commands themselves. So if you're new to Python, you'll be set up, but of course you'll leave this with some questions understanding how the actual commands work. Also, I'm doing this on a Mac, but a very similar approach would be done on a PC. So first thing I did was I Googled Python 3 download, and I did a search for Python. I pulled up the first link, which was the download, select downloads, and then I download the most current version. At the time of watching this video, it might be 3.9.6 or something else. That's okay. The key thing to note is that you have Python 3, not Python 2. And in fact, a lot of your computers probably come with Python pre-installed, but it's good to know where you download this and actually install it yourself. So what you're going to do now is once you've downloaded this, you're going to double click on it and you're going to install it. I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to suggest you pause the video, go through the install, and then come back and continue on. Okay, so now that it's installed, and I've done that before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to search for IDLE. And again, what IDLE is Integrated Development Learning Environment. So this is the built-in programming environment that comes with Python 3 download. Now, we can use a bunch of different programming environments, but I'd like to start here because it's easy, everyone has it, and you should be familiar with it. So I'm going to search for that and press enter. And here it is. So this is the IDLE shell, and in this shell I can see a couple things. I can see the version that I'm using, and I can see the date. I can also get how to get help, some commands that I can type in. But right here is where I can actually type in some Python 3 commands. And so what I can do is I can execute single lines of code or short segments of code that I want to test out. So the first command or function that's good to learn in Python is the print function. So if I write the word print, I open a bracket and I say print, and what do I want to print out? Let's print out hello world. And notice that hello world is in quotes, and I press enter. We now printed out hello world to the screen. We've just run a Python 3 command. What's happened is I've typed it in, I've pressed enter, and the computer has compiled it and executed it. And what the print function does is it says, I want you to print out to the terminal hello world. Well, I could do something like this. I could say x equals 4. And so what this does is it creates a variable called x and it puts a 4 inside of it. This is called an assignment statement in programming. And an assignment statement is anytime we have a variable on the left-hand side and we have some expression to evaluate on the right-hand side. So in this case, what I do is I always look at the right-hand side first and I say, oh, this is 4, and I'm going to put 4 into x. So when I press enter, nothing happens. But watch when I do this now. If I say print x, and notice that x is not in quotes, I get 4. Because what's happening is it says, oh, I know x, the variable x is the value 4, and therefore I'm going to print it to the screen. I could say x equals 5 plus 1 times 2, and this will give me 7, because it's going to evaluate the right-hand side first, and then put it into x, and it does follow order of operations. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then 5 plus 2 is 7. So now if I print x, I get 7. And there it is. Okay, so we can also print commands that have, a combination of strings or text as well as variables. I'm going to say the value of x is, and now I have to actually put the x there, so I put comma x like that. And so what this does, it uses the print function. It says the value of x is comma x, and this says take the variable x and print it out, so I get the value of x is 7. And so now we know how to kind of go in and test some single lines of codes or a couple lines of code. But generally we want to actually program in files. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here, I'm going to say file, and I'm going to create a new file. And this here now is a file where I can type a whole bunch of Python commands in it, save it, and then execute it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I'm going to say file, I'm going to say save as, and I'm going to save this as first program.py. And the .py indicates that this is actually a Python file. So I'm going to hit save now. I've done this once, so I'm going to replace it, and there it is. And so now we see on my computer, this has first program.py. And now I can write a bunch of Python commands in here and then execute them at once. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say print, and I'm going to print start program. And what this does is this is program starts reading here. So just so you understand, anything next to this hashtag is a comment. So this is a comment, the computer doesn't care. So now I'm going to say print, and I'm going to say my first program. So this will print out to the console my first program. And when I talk about the console, I'm talking about this part here. Then I'm going to say x equals, and now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use a function called input. And what input does is it will stop the computer and wait for the user to type something in. So I'm going to say, what is your favorite number? And so what this does now is the computer will stop and it will wait for the user to input their favorite number. And then I'm going to print, and I'm going to say x comma is a great number. And so what this will do is this will print, oh, pardon me, I haven't closed the quotes here. Print x is a great number to the screen, or to the console, where x is actually going to be the number you inputted. And then I'm going to say finally print, and I'm going to print end program. And so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code that I want to execute, and I'll execute it all at once. So to run this, I simply come up here. The first thing I have to do is I have to save this to make sure it's saved. And then I come up here, say run, and I'm going to hit run module. And when I hit run module, I want you to watch right here. So notice what it did is it printed out start program, printed out my first program, and now it says, what is your favorite number? And it's sitting here. And what it's doing is it's waiting for me to input a number and press enter. So I'm going to put in 10. I'm going to press enter. 10 is a great number, and then end the program. And there we go. So now we've written our first Python program that we can save, we can close this up, and it's kept forever. The material we wrote here at the start of this video is lost once we close this up. But this now is saved, and we can build on it. Again, the point of this is just to start to understand the landscape of programming in Python. There's lots to talk about in terms of how these commands work, and I'm really excited to work with you as we do that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a wonderful day.